Hello, once again welcome to Mahabubabad Education YouTube channel. Myself, Somalingam Uppula, School Assistant Biological Science from ZPHS Penugonda, Mandal K Samudram. Today our topic is the second part of endocrine system. In the previous video we discussed thoroughly about the pituitary gland. The structure and the importance of pituitary gland has been discussed thoroughly in the previous video. So now in this video, we are going to discuss thoroughly about three important endocrine glands. They are thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, and third one is pancreas. So first one is thyroid gland. Thyroid, the second important endocrine gland. The location is on the trachea, which has the two lobes. Two lobes containing thyroid gland is located on the trachea. Now thyroid gland secretes important hormone is known as thyroxine. Thyroxine is a very important hormone to maintain the basal metabolic rate, BMR. So thyroxine, an important hormone produced by thyroid gland. It is very important to maintain the basal metabolic rate in our body. So thyroxine, which is an important hormone for basal metabolic rate, and it maintains the proper temperature in the body, and again which is very important for the physical and mental growth of a person, especially in the childhood age. Physical mental growth is completely controlled by important hormone known as thyroxine. Once again, the second important endocrine gland is the thyroid gland, which secretes an important hormone known as thyroxine. Thyroxine is very important to improve the metabolic rate, to improve the basal metabolic rate, to maintain the normal body temperature, and as well as physical and psychological, mental growth is completely controlled by an important hormone produced by thyroid gland. The name of the hormone is thyroxine. Now, the thyroid gland growth and secretion of hormones is completely controlled by a hormone produced by pituitary gland known as TSH. So thyroid stimulating hormone, a hormone of pituitary gland, has the capability to control the thyroid gland. So for the production of thyroxine, the gland requires iodine. So iodine, an important element for the growth and secretion of hormones of thyroid gland. If any person who is not offered sufficient amount of iodine through the food, there is a expansion of thyroid gland on the neck region known as simple goiter, a type of disease. For the proper growth and secretion of thyroid gland requires some amount of iodine, an important element. If a person who is not supplied sufficient amount of iodine through the food, we can see enlargement of thyroid gland and the neck region. Such type of disease is known as simple goiter. And as we know, thyroxine is very important for the normal physical and mental growth, as well as to maintain the body temperature and improve the basal metabolic rate. If any person who doesn't have sufficient amount of thyroxine in its body, means who is suffering from hypothyroidism, we can see the person doesn't have the proper physical and mental growth. Mostly the person is affected by mental retardedness. I repeat, a person who is suffering from hypothyroidism means the person doesn't have the sufficient amount of thyroxine in its body, who is suffering from mental retardedness known as cretinism. So as we know, for the physical and mental growth, the body requires important hormone thyroxine produced by thyroid gland. If a person doesn't have sufficient amount of thyroxine in its childhood age, the person will be affected by mental retardedness, such position known as cretinism. That is why the hormone is very important to maintain the physical and mental growth in our body. So the second important endocrine gland is thyroid gland, which secretes important hormone known as thyroxine. Thyroxine is very important for the physical mental growth, to maintain the body temperature, as well as to improve the basal metabolic rate. An important hormone is required by the body known as thyroxine. The third variety of endocrine gland is parathyroid glands. So parathyroid glands, which are 4 in number, located on the thyroid gland. So parathyroid glands secrete important hormone known as parathormone. So parathormone is a hormone, is very important to maintain the calcium and phosphorus levels in bones as well as in our blood. I repeat, parathormone, one more hormone produced by parathyroid glands. Parathormone is very important to maintain, to regulate the calcium and phosphorus levels in bones as well as in blood. If a person who doesn't have sufficient amount of parathormone in its body, his bones lose calcium and becomes very weak. So to maintain the stiffness in teeth and bones, the body requires sufficient amount of calcium and phosphorus. Now calcium and phosphorus levels are controlled by an important hormone known as parathormone, produced by parathyroid glands. One more important hormone in the endocrine system is pancreas. And of course we know pancreas is a exocrine gland. We discussed already in the chapter number 1 as a digestive gland. Though it is a digestive gland, though it has a vessel, though it is an exocrine gland, pancreas also secrete some hormones. That is why pancreas is a exocrine gland as well as endocrine gland. So pancreas is also known as a mixed gland. I repeat. So pancreas is a exocrine, a digestive gland. Though it is a exocrine gland, it has the power to secrete some important hormones. That is why pancreas is a exocrine gland as well as endocrine gland. So first time a pathologist from Germany who studied the complete structure of pancreas, while he was observing the pancreas carefully, he identified some island-like structures on the pancreas. I repeat, the important gland of pancreas was studied properly by Paul Langerhans, a pathologist from Germany. While he was observing, he identified some island-like structures. Now the island-like structures or cells were identified by Paul Langerhans and who gave the name as islets of Langerhans. Later on, by doing various experiments, Paul Langerhans as well as some more scientists, by doing different type of experiments, finally they could find out the importance of pancreas in the endocrine system. Finally, now the pancreas, which secretes 2 important hormones. They are insulin and glucagon. So some cells in the pancreas known as islets of Langerhans, identified by Paul Langerhans, a pathologist from Germany. After doing a series of experiments by Paul Langerhans and other scientists, finally we identified the importance of pancreas in the endocrine system. Now the pancreas, which is secreting 2 important hormones, they are insulin and glucagon. Insulin is an important hormone. When the blood has more amount of sugar, the glucose levels are high in the blood. Now the excess amount of glucose is converted into glycogen and stored in the muscle cells as well as the liver by action of a hormone known as insulin. After having the food, automatically the blood sugar levels improved. So whenever we have the excess amount of, whenever we have the high glucose levels in the blood, immediately the hormone insulin produced by pancreas, which convert the excess amount of glucose or sugar in the blood, convert into glycogen, a type of one more type of sugar, and stores in liver and muscle cells. So the excess amount of glucose from the blood is converted into glycogen and stored in the liver and muscle cells. For this action, a hormone is required known as insulin produced by pancreas. The second hormone, the blood sugar is very low in the body. When a person doesn't have sufficient amount of glucose or sugars in the blood, now the second hormone glucagon becomes active, and whatever the glucose storages is there already in the form of glycogen in the muscles as well as in the liver. So from the liver and muscles, the glycogen is converted into glucose and now enters into blood by the action of a hormone known as glucagon. So two important hormones are produced by the pancreas. They are working in the negative way. Insulin is a hormone which reduces the glucose levels from the blood. Glucagon is the second type of hormone which improves the glucose sugar levels in the blood. So these two hormones are working in the opposite way to maintain the proper glucose levels in the bloodstream. They are insulin and glucagon. If a person doesn't have sufficient amount of insulin in its body, now the excess amount of sugar, the excess amount of glucose from the blood cannot be converted into glycogen. That's why the person who is suffering from a disease known as sugar disease or diabetes mellitus. An important hormone, insulin, if a person is suffering from deficiency of insulin in its body, now the excess amount of glucose or sugar from the blood cannot be converted into glycogen. That is why the person who is excreting huge amount of glucose through the urine, the disease known as sugar disease or diabetes mellitus, means the deficiency of insulin leads to sugar disease or diabetes mellitus. That is why insulin is an important hormone to reduce the glucose levels from the blood. And at the same time, when we don't have the sufficient amount of sugar levels in the blood, now the storage sugar in the form of glycogen from the liver and muscle cells, now the glycogen is converted into glucose by the action of a hormone known as glucagon. So insulin and glucagon are working in the negative way to maintain the normal sugar levels in our blood. So these two important hormones are produced by a gland known as pancreas. So far in this video we discussed the three important endocrine glands. They are thyroid gland, parathyroid glands and pancreas. In the next video we are going to discuss three more important endocrine glands are adrenal gland, testes and ovaries. Okay, thank you.